in the middle of our tournament when my friend John said he found a body in the bushes over there. I ran over there because I'm a healing monk to try and help, but obviously my magic wasn't strong enough because the dude's body was missing a head. So my friend decided to try and use a necromancer spell, which didn't work, which I knew it wouldn't. And apparently we contaminated the crime scene because that spell uses a lot of glitter.
Your Honor, I object!
And why is that, Mr. Reed?
Because it's devastating to my case!
I gotta tell you, you brightened my day, ma'am. All right?
That's what the last guy said, and then he sued me.
Hello, good people of YouTube. What's happening? Oh my goodness. In the Karen Read trial, there have been more sparks flying in the past 2 days, the first 2 days, than if Brian Higgins had really put his snowplow down and used it on less than an inch of snow on that road. Am I right? Oh, goodness. Thank you so much, Nikki, for being here tonight. She is the fearless mod on the clock. And before we bring in our guest, I just want to, one more time, thank our viewer. I don't know what his username is, but his name is Steve. And he sent me an enormous monitor that I can use to see everything. And I don't need to have my reading glasses or make my hanky-pank weasel face and get all close to my computer so that I can see the chat. I can see it all so clearly. It makes me want to sing a song, but I will not subject you to that type of torture. So, without any further ado, we are going to comment on the first couple of days worth of happenings in the Karen Read sequel trial with my friend here. Please welcome back to the show, attorney Jim Robichaud. Hey, I don't have any sound effects, so
yeah,
you get a round of applause from me.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm excited to get caught up on some of the stuff. Like I said, I've watched pretty much the whole second day, but missed some chunks of the first day, missed chunks of opening.
Well,
but
that's gonna be what we're primarily watching. So
okay, good.
Yeah, it'll be really good. I was before I bring it onto the screen, I was very moved by Alan. His opening was everything that I hoped it would be and more. He nailed the reasonable doubt factor that really I felt was kind of neglected in his closing for the last trial. Yeah. And he really hit that nail on the head. And in contrast, Hank, he was loud but still managed to be monotone. I don't understand how he was able to achieve such a thing. It reminded me of, in the movie Up, when that little boy is knocking on the old man's door and he's got his little scout costume on and he kind of half yells and he's reading out loud, "Good afternoon. My name is Russell and I am a wilderness explorer." That's just kind of how Hank started.
You seen that movie a few times?
Only a few. Only a few. It's an animated classic. So
it is. I'm saying it wasn't.
Oh yeah, it's a goodie. I love Up. The way most girls feel about like Titanic or The Notebook. The first 10 minutes of Up.
The Notebook is a classic, okay?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean about the monotone. I feel like opening and closings can be I mean, I'm not even like a trial lawyer, but from what I've observed, the temptation to do too much is always there. Even in the ASAP Rocky trial, the closing, I thought the defense lawyer did a great job throughout, but he was clearly having a hard time stopping and letting go of the closing and concluding. You always want to say more. I mean, you're in control as long as you keep talking, but once you stop talking, it's out of your hands.
Very true. Yeah, he didn't seem natural at all to me. I mean, you'll see it. You'll see it.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say about it. Give me 1 second while I try to bring it up on the screen here.
Sure.
I just got a new monitor and a new mouse and a new keyboard, and so I'm still kind of working with all that stuff.
Yeah, I heard what you said about the monitor. That does make a big difference.
It was so nice. So this I got an email from a couple of people like in the same week. A couple really cool things happened from some viewers. So, oh my gosh. Can you hear me? Does it look like I'm blinking?
Yeah, I can see you just stopped blinking, but I can hear you fine. Oh, did I lose you?
Okay. Oh, crud. Half my screen is frozen and the other half is not.
I can see your right half.
I'm gonna exit. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm gonna exit and come right back, Jim. I'm gonna go ahead and start Hank, and then I will leave and come back. That's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. All right, here we go. Can you see Hank now?
I can see Hank.
Okay. I'm gonna start Hank. I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna come back.
Okay, we can do that.
Boop.
At 6:04 a.m. on January 29, 2022, the alarm bell sounded in the Canton Fire Department. Firefighter paramedic Timothy Nuttall knew what that meant. His heart skipped a beat. He raced to his equipment and he picked up his bag, which was
Oh, hey everybody. Looks like it's just you and me now. Anybody have any questions for me while we're here waiting for the video? Anybody have any secrets they want to share? Just us? Hey, C's today. Anything happened with you today? I had a little legal thing. A little YSL thing today. It's been a busy day. Normally, I'd like to get more caught up with the testimony, but what did I think of the blatant perjury by Carrie Roberts? I don't know. I think she kind of got out over her skis too much. You don't want to do that. I wonder how much of it is, how much of that would have come out at the first trial if she'd been more thoroughly cross-examined versus how much of it's an actual change in her personality or perspective since the first trial. But I don't even remember her being that controversial in the first trial. I know she wasn't cross-examined. I just remember thinking she was like a sympathetic, more or less truthful narrator. But it's quite a change. What did you think? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she seemed like a sweet lady who's just upset about everything. Yeah. From what I recall, it's pretty hard to. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Massachusetts, but it's pretty hard to prove perjury in most places. But you can always say, "Oh, I didn't remember," or "I thought it was this," and I misspoke. But oh, that's funny. That's the YSL thing I was working on today. Had to do with supposed dishonest testimony. Although in this case, the case I'm working on. Is definitely... Oh, there she is. Hey.
Hi. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So, when did Hank leave the screen?
Pretty quickly. He was talking about heart beating in 6:09 a.m. January 29th.
Okay. So, all right, I'll wind it back a little further. This time it was the webcam. So I guess that needs to be the next thing I replace.
Okay.
So I had to unplug it, remove some kind of chip in it, and then put it back in to get it to work. But I think we're good now. Yeah, that was odd. All right. Well, sorry about that. All right, let's bring that back up.
Oh, are you there?
Find the place. Oh, he's got his arm raised here. That looks...
He's very intense. I'll give him that.
Oh, he is. Here we go.
All right.
Timothy Nuttall knew what that meant. His heart skipped a beat. He raced to his cardiac arrest. The most serious of calls for a firefighter to paramedic, that means that a person's heart has stopped.
So this was... Oh, hey, Debbie. Good to see you. This was odd to me because this is so far off. You're kind of supposed to give the crux of the case right from the jump, right? And instead, he's giving the narrative of the EMT. It just seemed very like a different style from what I was expecting. I mean, don't you typically say the defendant did this to this person at this time, and here's how it happened?
Yeah, I think so. More of a bigger picture storytelling than getting down to that specific. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
and,
he kind of started with person X instead of person A.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, maybe he assumes that they have some background to the story already, but
possible. I mean, shoot, you and I have some background.
Nope.
Probably know a little something.
Yeah.
He didn't just got into the station and he rushed to the ambulance. This mission. He jumped in the back of the ambulance here and he rode. As he drove, firefighter Nuttall could not see anything. Across the road, it was near blizzard conditions. He calmed himself, he steadied himself. This is what the firefighters and paramedics are trained to do, to focus. and he focused on his task. He looked around the back of the ambulance to make sure all the tools were in place. The ambulance was meticulous as well. This was Anthony Flamatti's ambulance, and it was well stocked. He calmed himself, and he thought about what was going to happen. What should he be looking for? What is his next steps? He played the scenarios through his mind.
He goes on for a good bit about the EMTs. It's
Yeah.
like a solid 15 minutes that he's just giving the perspective of the EMTs.
Yeah, that's too long. I can see
Yeah,
Alvin's face was kind of funny there. He was just staring straight ahead.
I like Jim's face here.
Look at Lally's face. He's like pouting.
Poor Lally. I mean, I feel like he's wearing. I'll make another Up reference. The cone of shame. That's what he looks like right now. And not just here. Like over the past month, ever since Hank came on, I feel like he's just. I don't know. I don't know what to say for poor
Yeah.
Lally.
I don't know why I don't really know why he stayed on. I mean, aside from the whole independent special prosecutor. I mean, I know that Hank's not really supposed to be a special prosecutor and the independent special prosecutor, but the other guy, what's his face? The Turtle Boy prosecutor, the judge, the former judge, what's his face?
Yeah.
I can't think of
So
his name,
there's
but
Ken Mello, but then Ken Mello got sick, so Robert Cosgrove got brought in.
Cosgrove. He's supposed to be an independent prosecutor, but you have Lally and Tully still in this prosecution, and Lally's tied to Cosgrove, so it kind of defeats the entire purpose of. Well, it's not an independent prosecutor. It's
Yeah, we'll give them special. The rest of it,
that's fair.
we'll let them keep the special part.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can maybe turn the speed up just a hair too. Playback speed. Let's go 1.25-ish. Yeah. All right. Let's see what he's talking about here.
That goes hand in glove with the cell phone is information on the defendant's Lexus vehicle chips. You might
I wish
have
you would
a black
just
box
stay
in the
close to the
airplane,
mic.
So there's some type of event that captures a small amount of time. Well, that was captured in the defendant's Lexus. That black box information with the cell phone data will tell you everything you can know in this case. It will bring us step by step through the entire night to the death of Donald Lee. And so they leave the waterfall hour 12, and you'll see.
Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but that black box info had no timestamp. Do you remember, Jim?
I don't remember. I couldn't quite hear what he was saying. I heard you say this. The cell phones will tell you the whole story the whole night or something like that.
Right. He's saying that basically the text stream data, the black box data, it will tell you everything. Well,
That's a big promise to make.
it is. And the black box data that I remember seeing had no timestamps. At least
I think that's
from
right.
trial number 1. With the sequel trial, we'll see, but I do not recall there being any timestamps. So it was that's where the matter of key cycles came into play.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, they're trying to reverse engineer it.
Right. So they were trying to use that as their navigator for the time frame, and it's like,
Yes, not ideal.
See that the ignition goes on to the defendant's Lexus. And both John O'Keefe and the defendant in the car decide that they're going to go back to 34 Fairview Road, where we talked about earlier. They're going to go there for a get-together for one of the homeowner's sons who's having a birthday party. And so as they drive back, we'll be able to follow them with this location data. When they go back to Fairview, they don't know exactly where it is, and they get lost. And so John O'Keefe makes a phone call has a phone call with one of his friends, Jim McCabe. And during that phone call, which the defendant listens to because she recounts it.
Oh, real quick, Brian's here. We got to say hi to Brian.
Hey there.
LTL. If there is a single human being watching this right now who does not subscribe to LTL, you need to go and remedy that really quickly and come right back. I'll wait. Brian is one of the most amazing people in the free Karen Read movement. He's doing a ton, not just for Karen, but for every state with noteworthy inconsistencies in Massachusetts. Every case in the state. He's bringing a lot of light to Enrique Delgado Garcia, a lot of light to the Sandra Birchmore case. Good people, great content. His stuff is just so polished, you know. It's so well put together. Whereas here, I'm still trying to find my way out of a paper bag. So
Yeah, I know the feeling. I feel the same way.
yeah, it's organized chaos here. But so yeah, what impression are you getting, Jim, from Hank? Oh, Jim, Brian wants to pop in. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hang on just a second, Brian. So, Jim, what is your general impression that you're getting from Hank right now? Are you borderline catatonic like me, or what?
That's just definitely sort of hyper detailed without a lot of like sort of structure or too much detail without having painted the bigger picture first.
Right.
Like this stuff is going to come out in evidence, so you don't need to repeat everything that they're going to hear. You're more giving them a guideline of what they should expect to hear, or what what the evidence will show. You don't need to literally repeat every bit of evidence that's going to come in.
Sure.
Just
Sure.
giving them a map of what to expect, setting their expectations, saying this is what we're going to show you in significantly less detail than he's going to right now. You don't need to be talking about black boxes and different kinds of forensic data. Just give us the big picture. Give us a story.
So, Jim,
Ooh.
felt like there was possibly a purpose to the overly detailed and scrambled layout of information that there we go. So I almost felt like there was almost an intentional scrambling of the details in the Commonwealth's case during the first trial. Do you think that there's a possibility that it was intentionally presented that way to confuse the jury and maybe overwhelm them with minuscule details?
I mean, maybe. It's just, I don't know what the benefit of that would be. I do think the first trial there was a lot of data that wasn't presented in the most clear manner. Maybe he's trying to give the sense that there's just an overwhelming amount of evidence against Karen, and that's why he's trying to go into so much detail. But
possibly,
that's something I could think of. Yeah.
Oh,
like
here's Brian. Hey.
How are you? I know you have a guest here. I just want to pop in and say thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate you. I see you in the chat all the time, and you have a great platform here. And I'm telling you, just keep consistency, grind away. It's a long game here on YouTube, but you can make it. Believe me, if you just keep doing what you're doing, the audience will come. Don't worry about it. It will happen. It just takes a while to do it, but you're on the right track. I believe in you. Just keep doing what you're doing, and thank you for letting me pop on really quick.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Well, and thank
I think the Wi-Fi went out. Hi, Jim.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Brian?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Go ahead,
anyway,
Brad. I think your Wi-Fi
but
went
yeah,
out.
piece by piece, it did. It's back. I'll tell you another time what's going on with my internet, but basically they're digging up fiber optics, and
Oh, boy.
in the interim, I'm using one of those cellular routers that converts cellular into
Oh,
Wi-Fi until, because there's a company that bought out the one other company that was servicing my local area. So they said in a couple weeks they should be servicing, but
Oof.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the lay of the land for Wi-Fi for sure.
Yes.
yeah.
But again, I won't interrupt your show. I just want to jump on and say hello. Jim, nice to meet you. I'll let you
Thank
guys
you.
get back to testimony. I'm sure you have a great show planned out here, and I'll be dipping in and out watching the show. But thanks for having me up. And I always see you in the chat, and I appreciate you coming over and really support my channel. So I wanted to come over today and support yours as well.
Well, thanks so much, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. And it's always good to see you.
Absolutely. Bye, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Well, that's
Brian's
fun.
good people. Yeah, Brian's great. Hopefully we get a clear outcome with this case, because I mean, hell, Massachusetts could use one.
You're not ready for trial number 3?
It's happened before, Jim.
I know.
It's happened there. Commonwealth versus Sean Ellis.
Yeah, that's true. I know. I think
1990.
I've heard of 5. I've heard of 5. That's the highest number I've heard.
5? Ooh.
I've heard of 5 in Mississippi.
Mississippi, I can see
3's
that
a lot.
happening.
Yeah.
3's just too much. I think there needs to be some type of federal, like, I understand the double jeopardy clause, but I think maybe after your second or third trial, if there's another mistrial, it's got to be with prejudice.
Yeah, I mean, at
Because-
some point that is reasonable doubt, right? I mean,
Exactly.
if you have 2 trials, then you definitely have reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah, if it's like some kind of technical mistrial for something that's, the defense's fault or whatever, then fine. But if you have like 2 hung juries, then yeah, that's enough.
Precisely. I think from that point, and think of all the state resources that would go into 3 trials too. All that
that's
taxpayer money. And at that point, you're just gouging. I mean, I don't care what type of socioeconomic status you come from. If you go through 3 trials,
Yeah.
for in a criminal proceeding, holy moly, I can't imagine what something like that must cost.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's annoying about the whole Karen's lawyers are working pro bono argument. It's like they're not really working pro bono. They just know that there's no chance of them getting paid the amount that they would have billed. It's not the same thing.
Right.
Those are 2 distinct ideas.
Yes.
But yeah, I think Alan said they're well into the millions of dollars, which I'm sure. I mean, I'm not surprised by that at all.
Oh, yeah. Probably coming close to tens of millions the longer this drags out. Before the second trial even started, and I mean the second trial, I'm referring to, the motion after motion after motion, all that began to amp up. Every time, and you know this, Jim, but just for those who are viewing, every time a single piece of paper gets filed, it's like, $1,400. It's crazy.
No, it's so much more than that.
Oh, really?
There's so much more. Yeah, I mean,
See?
like, I don't know what. I mean, first of all, I'm sure the rates that Alan charges are really high, but I mean, relative to like an average defense attorney, but I mean, I've worked on like motions for summary judgment that we billed like $250,000 on,
Oh my word.
just for one motion. It's funny. The one I'm thinking of, we actually we filed it, and then it went to the federal. It went to the Ninth Circuit, and they didn't even decide it. They just sent it right back down to the beginning on a different issue that we didn't even brief. So
Oh
we
my
actually
God.
got like zero progress. It was, I mean, it probably spent probably close to like $400,000 just on that
Oh,
motion, combined with like if you
right.
combine like the oral argument and oral argument preparation, it gets really expensive.
Just down the drain. Holy moly. And this is why, Jim, so many people, especially like in the middle class or, middle and working classes who make just enough to where they, and here's what a lot
Oh,
Bernie
look up there.
can't afford one. Oh, am I freezing
Okay,
again?
I got you now.
Sorry.
There's-
Okay. But you're told all the time, or
Oh,
can't afford one, then one will be provided for you, right?
yeah,
That's only true if you're basically on welfare. You have to make, it depends on the state, a certain dollar amount above the poverty line
yeah,
or less in order to qualify. And I'll just tell you right now, it's not a lot because something in the YSL trial made me curious, and I looked up what qualifies you for a public defender in the state of Georgia.
I don't know what it is, but it's a small number.
How many dependents you have, things like that. They evaluate all that, but I mean, you almost have to be on government assistance in order
Yeah.
to get a public defense, and it's so expensive, as you described, to have a private attorney for criminal
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah.
So a lot of people to roll over and take a plea because they're in that shit sandwich between not qualifying for public defender and not being able to afford a private defender. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I
they
mean
just plea
that's
out.
that's one good thing about Karen is at least she got bond. Like a lot of these guys are just that they're stuck in jail and they can't even work until after the trial, really, once they make a deal, once they plead guilty or plead guilty
Yep.
pretty much.
Yeah.
But
It's-
yeah, it's so expensive. It's
so
insane.
sad.
And sometimes I think this came on the YSL trial a lot, is there'd be people that would plead guilty and then their case would kind of come up in the trial and you'd see how weak their case was, but it was too late to contest it. And by that point they've already pleaded guilty, they're already out, but kind of see after the fact how weak the evidence against them was.
Yeah, man.
But something needs to be done.
I agree. I think that perhaps a public defender, I mean, as long as you're aware that it might not be the best out there, should be available to everyone.
Yeah.
Regardless of income. And
Yeah.
if you choose to hire a private attorney, then great. But I personally think that should be available for everybody.
Yeah. And a lot of them are really good. They just have like a lot on their plate. But
Sure.
like my partner,
Yeah.
the partner I'm working with right now in Atlanta, she started as a public defender. And a lot of people do get their start there, but it's just they have hundreds of cases on their plate at the same time. And me see. Actually, let me see if I pull her YouTube panel.
For those of you who don't know, guys, Jim here is taking part in representing one of the co-defendants. One of the
that's right.
witnesses, sorry, in the YSL trial, which was, in my opinion, one of the largest embarrassments and calamities ever to occur in the American criminal justice system.
He was both, actually. He's a codependent and a
Oh, was he?
Yeah. Yep. He yeah, we filed today, our motion today, so it's a big day for us. But
That kind of seems like an oxymoron to be both a witness and a co-defendant.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we should do a separate show on that. We can do a whole thing. I don't want to get us off track too far, but
Okay. We should, though. I'm really interested in hearing more about that, because typically you can't use a co-defendant as a witness against another, right?
I think if they testify, it's usually okay. But
Okay.
a lot of times we get into trouble is where you have a co-defendant. You're trying to use something about a co-defendant when they're not testifying, and then you get into like the conference, the right to confront your accuser.
Right. And it's a Fifth Amendment issue.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah, I'm really interested in hearing about that. Guys, if you have not liked this video yet, go ahead and leave your Touch DNA evidence. How about you, Jim? I'm personally tired of Hank. I'd like to move on.
That works for me. I think I get the thrust of where he's going with this. What do you think of Lally's opening the first time?
Okay, I'm vowing to not stream again until I get my internet. But yeah, Hank at least seems to have more of a pulse than Lally did. I'll give him that, but it's still bad.
Yeah.
All right, scribbling forward. Precise seeking. Just a second. Let me go, hang on just a second. I'm going to go to my downloads because I actually downloaded it so that it wouldn't hold as much interwebs.
Okay.
Downloads. Here we go. Aha. Full screen and here we go. I'm just finding the precise moment. And play it. Add to stage. Na, 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 na. Here we go.
Follow the science, follow the data. Ignore speculation, surmise, conjecture. Stay true to the evidence. It will lead you to the truth. That on January 29, 2022, a very intoxicated defendant was angry and arguing about the relationship with John O'Keefe. And after the fight was over, she left, but she brought the fight back to him in the form of her SUV. She clipped him, he fell backwards, he broke his head, and then
he broke his head.
A lifetime of help.
Sounds like a nursery
at
rhyme.
the corner of that yard, left to die with no help.
He broke his head.
The facts, the data, and the evidence will bring you the truth. In the defendant's own words, confirm everything you love to do.
Right, thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Could I have just a moment?
That was a curious turn of phrase.
Jim, this is what legends are made of.
Man, the evidence in this case will establish above everything else 3 points. There was no collision with John O'Keefe. There was no collision. There was no collision. John O'Keefe did not die from being hit by a vehicle, period. The facts will show that. The evidence will show that. The data will show that. The science will show that. And the experts will tell you that. You'll learn that the Commonwealth pinned its entire case on a brazen and a flawed assertion that is untethered, unconnected to the facts and to the evidence. And their assertion is contrary to science. Because at the end of the day, folks, there was no collision with John O'Keefe.
Was there a collision?
So how did we end up here?
I think he said there was no collision.
On trial for something, for an event that literally never happened. Well, the evidence is going to explain it. And it can be summed up in the following text message at the very beginning of this investigation. A text message of a now fired Massachusetts state police officer named Michael Proctor.
Ooh, now fired. I got to do it, guys. I got to do it.
All right, that's it. Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Dishonorably discharged Michael Proctor.
See, I like the 3-point thing. That's kind of what I was talking about. With the, give him a roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to at least gloss over the main point of your argument.
Yeah.
And Jackson did exactly that.
Investigator on this case, and he was talking about a fellow officer, a fellow cop who owned the property where John O'Keefe's body was found. Text message with a buddy. Question, is the homeowner going to catch any shit? Answer, nope. He's a Boston cop too. That quote defines the lack of integrity of the Commonwealth's entire case, its entire investigation, and this prosecution. During the course of the trial, you'll learn much more about Mr. Proctor, why he said that, and what it really means. What you'll see and hear in this courtroom in the coming weeks is not just a story of a tragic loss. And make no mistake, John O'Keefe's death is and was a tragic and tragic loss. But the story you'll hear is about an investigation that was riddled with errors from the beginning, a rush to judgment, conflicted and corrupted from the start, corrupted by bias, corrupted by incompetence, and corrupted by deceit. Finally, it was corrupted by a deliberate effort to avoid and to cover up the very truth that you are seeking.
Take me now, Jackson. That was it. I mean,
yeah.
That part right there, this investigation was corrupted from the start, corrupted by bias, corrupted by incompetence, corrupted by deceit. I mean, that summed it right up pretty well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about when he was asking in the first trial, when he asked Trooper Paul about hindsight bias, or what was it? Was it hindsight bias or was it confirmation bias? He was asking Trooper Paul about confirmation bias and if he'd ever heard of it. And Trooper Paul walked right into that one.
Come on, internet.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Bring me back.
You're back. You're back. We got you.
Oh, okay. Good. I was trying to will it into submission.
I heard.
Confirmation bias.
Yes. Yeah, that was a big one for me in the first trial. Yep. How did you get in?
Back.
Oh, there you are. I think.
God damn it. Sorry, guys. I'm calling this internet company tomorrow and asking when the hell they're coming back because this is getting.
Oh, there you are. I got you.
I'll be darned. All right, I'm gonna keep Jackson going because I keep freezing. We'll see if y'all can get the gist of what he's saying.
You'll find when you hear the evidence that the Commonwealth's case is the literal definition of reasonable doubt. They won't be burden of proof. The court will tell you is beyond any and all reasonable doubt. Aaron Reed found John O'Keefe dead on the front lawn of the Boston police officer Brian Albert at 6 a.m. on January 29th, 2022. Picture the scene. Blood-curdling screams, ambulances, emergency lights on, fire engines, ladder trucks, paramedics, patrol vehicles, patrol cruisers, police officers, first responders, firefighters, all swarming all over Brian Albert's lawn, literally feet under his bedroom window.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Brian Albert, sworn peace officer, a first responder himself, never came outside. Never went outside to see what the chaos was about, never went outside to see if he could assist a man in need, never walked outside his house to see if he could help a fallen fellow officer on his own front lawn.
Just a little sus.
More shockingly, you'll learn that lead investigator for the Massachusetts.
And don't forget, he was also a Gulf War vet.
Yep. Yeah,
He
just
was
a
a Marine.
lot of commotion outside your window.
Yeah, those guys don't sleep too deeply. Okay, veterans. It's common that if you wake them up, and it's easy to wake them up, that they wake up with a jolt. Okay,
yeah.
My dad is a vet, and I appreciate his service, but the handful of times that I had to wake him up in the middle of the night, he woke up not just abruptly, but swinging. He was ready to throw fists. I had to, if I had to wake him up, I had to do it like creating some middle school dance distance between myself and him, because he would hit you if you woke him up too, like, a little too harshly. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Brian Albert, in my humble opinion, should have woken up.
Police, Michael Proctor, never set foot inside Brian Albert's house that day. Never engaged in any investigation inside that house that day, even though a party with much alcohol had just occurred in that house, and even he never separated and secured witnesses. He never properly collected evidence. He never secured the evidence. He never searched for signs of a struggle inside or outside the home. He never properly canvassed the neighborhood. Michael Proctor never did any of these things, even though fellow officers of Michael Proctor's actually mentioned, in their words, not mine, that it looked like John O'Keefe may have been, quote, in a fight. You'll have questions about that conduct. During the course of this trial, you'll find that the Commonwealth will not have answers. You'll see from the evidence in this case that this case carries a malignancy, one that is spread through the investigation. It's spread through the prosecution from the very start, from the jump. A cancer that cannot be cut out, a cancer that cannot be cured. And that cancer has a name. His name is Michael Proctor. Now, you didn't hear his name in the prosecution's opening statement. Not once. And I suspect that was probably by design.
What did you think of that? So,
yeah,
Proctor, he's right. Proctor was not so much as mentioned by Hank Brennan.
Yeah, I think that was probably a mistake. Like, you need to get out ahead of that. Like, obviously, it's going to be a problem. Obviously, it's a problem for your case. Anytime you don't mention it or make it seem like you're hiding it or not disclosing it, I think that's a bad idea. And I mean, to Lolly's credit, I think he did a reasonably good job of getting ahead of some of that stuff in the first trial by bringing up the text messages on direct and whatnot.
True.
But
True.
yeah.
Well, because if you don't, it makes it look like you were trying to hide something.
Yeah. And like, I thought that him being fired could be a good thing for the prosecution in this case, because you can kind of, you know, say he did this stuff bad and we fired him. He did this stuff that was wrong, and so we fired him for that. But that doesn't change, you know, this other stuff. But by not even mentioning it in the opening, you're kind of giving up all of that advantage.
Right. I will say this,
I mean,
though.
it's gonna be.
It's going to be
I was
what?
gonna say. I was gonna say it's gonna. You know, it's gonna be an important part of the trial. You can't just ignore it.
True. You can't. And, you know, Jackson touches on this a little bit, but you have to screw the pooch pretty bad in order to lose a union job. And there is a strong union presence in Boston police, Massachusetts State Police, very, very strong union presence. And you can best believe that if Michael Proctor had any kind of a lead position, that he was part of a union. So yeah, you'll hear Jackson say it. But I would have thought, and there were quite a few things that should have made DA Morrissey drop this case, even if he truly felt that Karen Read was culpable. As soon as the feds were looking into an active murder investigation and coming forward and saying, you have nothing here, you need to drop this case, Morrissey should have dropped the case. When the 2:27 a.m. Google search came out, Morrissey dropped the case. He didn't drop the case. When all this other evidence came forward suggesting that possibly there were other suspects that were not looked into properly, Morrissey should have dropped that case, and he didn't. I mean, there were so many things. And I think that's why there's such a national and global presence on this, because it has become such a mockery of an ethical, upright prosecution that so many people have said, oh my God, look at all these conflicts of interest. Look at all this misconduct. Look at all of this incompetence. What's it going to take for them to drop the charges? And it still, to this day, hasn't been done.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cases where it doesn't, I would say it doesn't matter if she's guilty or innocent, but even if she were guilty, the evidence is so compromised and the evidence gathering is so compromised that you can't really say for sure that she is guilty. Like, even if there's all this evidence saying she's guilty and there's, nothing to the contrary, you still have to question it just because of how it was gathered and the way it was pursued.
Mm-hmm. I mean, would you drink a glass of water that you know is contaminated?
Yes.
Okay. Well, not a lot of people would. Not all of us have your courage. And, it depends on what it's contaminated with, too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking like
if,
wine.
If someone said all the above, right. Well, it's got poison, it's got bacteria, it's got mold, if it literally has everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's contaminated with everything. In this case, sorry, my insulin pump's barking at me. This case, though, is contaminated with quite literally everything. And it's Morrissey's still gulping it down. I can't believe this is still happening. And I think a lot of people are in the same state of disbelief.
Yeah.
But make no mistake about it. The evidence will show in this case that Michael Proctor is the very definition of the Commonwealth's case. And he's also their Achilles heel. He was the lead investigator on the case officer, the architect of the entire prosecution. You'll learn there's not a single part of this case, folks, not a single part that he didn't touch, that he didn't direct, that he didn't orchestrate personally. Every single bit of it has his fingerprints on it. You'll learn that Michael Proctor was a longtime family friend of the Alberts. And he's been disgraced by his own agency, not by us, by the Massachusetts State Police. Investigated, suspended, and fired. The evidence will show that Massachusetts State Police found Michael Proctor guilty of bringing dishonor to the department for his conduct, not in some other case, not in some tangential case, in this case.
He said dishonor, guys. I have to do it again.
All right, that's it. Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Thank you, Eddie Murphy. Thank you for that wonderful moment in Mulan that we now get to use without mercy upon Michael Proctor.
The investigation of Karen Reed. Conduct that included bias in favor of his friends, the all-powerful Albert family, and bias against my client, Miss Reed, the outsider. Do you have any idea how hard it is for a state trooper to get fired? The evidence is going to show that Michael Proctor earned it, every bit of it. You'll hear that within hours of a Boston police officer being found dead on Brian Albert's lawn, Michael Proctor, the lead investigator, who had investigated exactly nothing up to this point, right at the beginning, made an early pronouncement that Brian Albert himself was not going to, quote, catch any shit, end quote. And that was for one reason and one reason only. He's a Boston cop. The evidence will show that Michael Proctor made this statement in a text conversation with his high school buddies. A text he never thought would see the light of day, certainly never thought we would get a hold of. And when he thought no one was looking, he actually said the quiet part out loud. He's a cop too. We'll give him a pass. You'll learn that in Michael Proctor's world, rank has its privileges. And the evidence will show that's privileges that you don't get and I don't get. But apparently a Boston police officer, Brian Albert, and his friends, they do get. You'll learn that in Michael Proctor's world, he didn't care about finding the truth. In his world, his priority was to protect the Brotherhood, to protect that blue wall, to protect his friends who were at the Albert's house that night. I want to take a step back, if I could, and spend the next few minutes talking a little bit more detail about what the actual facts in this case will show, not based on speculation, not based on surmise, not based on guesswork or conjecture, but the actual true facts that you will learn through the course of this trial. On January 28, 2022, it was a Friday night. John and Karen had made plans to meet up with friends for drinks. It was a happy and normal night for them. They were affectionate, they were loving, they were in good spirits, nothing out of the ordinary. They started a local watering hole called C.F. McCarthy's. You've heard that name before and you'll hear it again. And eventually they made their way over to the Waterfall Bar and Grill, another bar where they ended up. When they got to the Waterfall Bar and Grill, the Albert family was already there, already heavily drinking. You'll learn that this was no ordinary family, the Alberts. The Albert family was a well-known Canton family. Some might even describe them as a very powerful Canton family. Brian Albert was there at the Waterfall. You'll hear that he's a longtime Boston police officer. His wife, Nicole Albert, was there with him. His brother, Chris Albert, a powerful Canton politician. He sits on the select board. The select board actually governs the police department, the Canton PD. He was there. His wife, Julie Albert, was there. Their daughter, Caitlin Albert, was there. His sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, was there. Her husband, Matt McCabe, was also there. They were all there drinking before John and before Karen ever arrived.
He's painting the web for the jury, the way that I'm looking at it now. He's kind of showing, and here I'm working on kind of the web of influence that the Alberts have, right? Just to kind
Oh,
of
wow.
give a visual. And I haven't
Yep.
even added Higgins. Like, these are just, you know, family and major friends. And then
Mhm.
Higgins also, you know, was best buds with Chief Berkowitz, who at the time was the acting police chief.
Mhm.
That's why he had his own full-time office there, even though full-time he was actually an ATF agent, right? Who was
Yeah.
friends with Brian Albert. So that's why he was just nobody found it odd at Canton PD when he shows up there at 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Let me pull it back up. Colin Albert was the ring bearer in Michael Proctor's wedding.
Oh, I didn't know
Mike-
that. That's a nice touch.
Yep.
It's a
Michael
psychotic
Proctor's
touch.
sister, yeah. His sister Courtney is best friends with Colin Albert's mom, Julie Albert, whose husband is, you know, on the Canton Select Board, which makes him in charge of the local police.
Mhm.
And then Brian Albert has another brother who is on the Canton PD, Kevin Albert. So
Yep.
it's just this wild web that, you know, there needs to be a visual of it. So I'm working on it, and it looks like a freaking, you know, that meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia
Yeah.
with, you know, the
The corkboard.
crazed look on the face and all the
Yeah.
yarn. But I mean, it's quite literally what that web looks like to show the level of influence that the Alberts really have with every witness against
Yeah.
Karen and
Yeah, for sure.
every investigator. It's wild to me that this is just allowed to stand. And if it's allowed to stand anywhere, guys, it will be allowed everywhere. It's just a matter of time. So if you're not in Massachusetts, you still need to be pissed off.
You'll learn that a man by the name of Brian Higgins, also a law enforcement officer.
Case in point, Young Thug. Right? Young Thug just almost had, well, dare I say almost, the Fulton County District Attorney just made an effort to revoke Jeffrey Williams' probation for things that he
Yeah.
said on Twitter, X, that were critical of the Fulton County DA. I mean,
Yeah, that were correct, by the way. Yeah.
okay, I'm back. I'm sure
okay.
that at least it wouldn't surprise me if what is happening with Turtle Boy, with Aiden Carney being prosecuted for things that he is saying with no threats, no real fear, you know, being caused on his account, is part, and that being allowed to stand is part of what is emboldening these other rogue players.
Yeah, that could certainly be. You mean like within Canton or just more broadly?
More broadly. So, like, you know, when something is allowed in any court, that is used as precedent later for other decisions made in court.
Sure.
So, you know, when things like what we see in the Karen Reed case are allowed to happen, whatever ultimately stands is going to be used as a foundation for decisions in court that are made later, especially if those decisions had not previously been made. And there is a level of uniqueness to Karen Reed's case that absolutely will set precedents for other cases later. So if it's allowed to happen here, again, it will continue to happen.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to press play now. Sorry. Rant done.
I see.
Brian Albert, he was also there. And the two of them, the two Bryans, had been drinking most of the night together. You'll see video footage from the waterfall, which will show you that Karen and John were happy. Which lead investigator Michael Proctor plainly chose to ignore that video footage. It paints a very different picture of Brian Higgins. You'll learn that Higgins had romantic designs
Captain
for Karen.
Bloatthroat has entered the chat.
That becomes important. Brian Higgins had engaged Karen in flirtatious texts. The evidence will show that the first time he saw her presence after being rejected by her was when she walked into the Waterfall Bar and Grill along with her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Of an unsettling interaction, troubling interaction between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe. And unlike the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, in this case, you won't ignore that evidence. As the bar was closing around 12 midnight, the Alberts invited everybody back to their house for a get-together to just keep the night going. And you'll learn that Karen and John ultimately pulled up to the house. They got out of the SUV to make sure they had the right address. You see, neither John nor Karen had ever been to 34 Fairview. They weren't even sure they were at the right address. And the evidence will establish that John got out of the SUV and went into the house. Let me say that again. The facts unequivocally, the data, the science, the witnesses will all unequivocally establish that John O'Keefe went into the Albert home that night.
So, Jim, some of the things that are going to fly out of Jackson's mouth next are things that are new, which in contrast with Hank is not really presenting any new evidence.
Mm-hmm. True.
But Jackson is about to make some claims that we had not before heard.
Okay.
So this gets pretty interesting. It's already more interesting than Brennan's opening, but it's about to get even more interesting. Buckle the buck up.
Eyewitnesses and forensic data will establish that fact. When he didn't come back out, you'll learn that Karen grew increasingly frustrated. She got upset. She was left alone in a car, in the cold, in the middle of the night, with the car idling. John had gone into the house. She expected him to come right back out. And when he didn't, seconds turned into minutes, and minutes started to clock away. She left John a voicemail, then another voicemail. Onto a single text. The longer he didn't respond, the more upset she got. The Commonwealth will intimate, as they already have in their opening statement, you'll hear that Karen was very agitated. You'll hear some voicemails where she's swearing. You'll hear voicemails where she calls them names. There's name calling. But you'll also
Now, Jim.
Yep.
I don't know what your history may be with long-term relationships, but this case has made me pray to God that if anything ever happens to my spouse, that he and I didn't get into an argument within about a week's time span.
Yeah, for sure.
Of that happening.
Yeah, that was a part of the thing for me. It was like supposedly the angry voicemails are evidence that she killed him or that she hit him or something. But if she knew that she knew that she killed him, she wouldn't be leaving voicemails. I mean, you don't,
and
right?
if she did, I would think I was just checking on you. Just wanted to make sure you're okay. Haven't heard from you in a while.
Yep.
Okay, sweetheart. Now I'm It
Oh,
just
okay.
it seems like if she really were trying to did I freeze again?
Yeah. Sorry.
With voice messages, that it would be nice, friendly messages.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm in no
That makes
way
sense.
upset with you. I just want to make sure you're okay. You know.
Yeah.
And then you have to remember that John had also ditched Karen like this before. When in the first trial, they were trying to create a motive for Karen. They brought up a trip to Aruba that they had taken about a month prior to this. And John had reportedly disappeared on New Year's Eve and left Karen in the hotel room with the kids to ring in the new year by themselves. And he didn't come up to their hotel until like 3:00 in the morning, or the exact time, I don't know, but it was quite late. He didn't stay out
Yeah.
the whole night, but so
Pretty much.
Karen was in a I'll be damned, he's doing this again type of mood in all likelihood.
Yeah.
Like, come on, John, we've already been through this. We've already talked about this. You can't just leave me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Single one of those voicemails was left for John after he failed to come back out of the house, after he failed to respond to her voicemails and to her texts. Karen believed John had just left her sitting there, grabbed a beer, was partying with his friends.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence will actually show that John and Karen never had a crossword, not a single crossword that entire evening before he left that SUV and went inside the house. And you will learn what Karen had absolutely no way of knowing at the time. It wasn't that he wouldn't respond to her. It's that he couldn't respond to her. And the evidence will show you why. Let's talk about that. We'll introduce you to a doctor named Elizabeth Lopesada, a renowned forensic pathologist, a medical examiner, and a professor at Brown University. She will tell you that the injury to the back of John's head, first of all, was immediately incapacitating. And that has meaning. At the moment he suffered that fatal head injury, he couldn't walk, talk, grab his phone, cry for help, nothing. He was completely incapacitated, completely unconscious from the moment he suffered that injury.
Okay, so this, if proven, tells us one of two things or both, okay? John's final action on his phone was a manual lock, so not an automatic lock from sitting for 30 to 90 seconds, but the side button on his phone was pressed at 12:32 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So his phone was unlocked manually, passcode entered, Face ID, whatever, prior to 12:32, and that Karen, if she did do this, John could not, if he was immediately incapacitated, he could not have been like, oh, damn, that really hurts. Let me pull my phone out and shut it off. He was knocked out instantaneously from the blow to the back of his head. So either somebody locked that phone for him at 12:32, or whatever happened to him took place after 12:32.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Karen connected to John's Wi-Fi at his home at 12:36.
Yep.
And it's a minimum, well, a route time of 6 minutes.
Yep.
And she's not familiar with that neighborhood. She had to get help finding that house. It's, it's cold. The roads are not in prime condition. So I don't think she could have made that drive in 3 minutes, 4 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And so that's practically an alibi right there.
Yeah.
Because that puts not just a finish line there, but it also now has a start line because we have that 12:32 time, and we also have we definitely have evidence coming from the defense that John was immediately incapacitated after suffering that strike to the back of the head.
Yep.
He was completely still and incapable of interacting with anyone or anything. But the doctor will tell you something more, and just as important. She'll tell you that John O'Keefe did not suffer from hypothermia, as the Commonwealth will undoubtedly allege. His body showed no signs of it. No frostbite, no cold-induced injuries to his organs, no damage based on cold or frost.
That's also new.
Yep.
There really was not much of a contest on the part of the defense as to hypothermia being like a co-cause of death.
Mm-hmm.
But if Officer O'Keefe really had been outside from 12:30 in the morning to 6 something, and if the weather was approximately if the temperature was approximately 18 degrees, he would have suffered from frostbite, and I'm not a medical professional, but
Yeah.
I've lived in cold places and I've seen enough medical experts render an opinion on this. Every medical expert I've ever seen who has talked about this case has said, why didn't he have frostbite on his toes, fingers, ears, or the tip of his nose if he had really been in that kind of a temperature for 6 hours? And why was his core temp 80 degrees and not lower? Because he had no gloves, no coat, no hat to keep his head warm. He was wearing sneakers and jeans that were wet from the snow as well. So nothing to help him maintain body temp. So this evidence, if proven, suggests that O'Keefe had to have died from just the head injuries, and B, had to have been outdoors in that yard for less than 6 hours.
Yeah, less. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely the hypothermia is, you expect the frostbite to show pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Based on what I remember from New England winters.
This is new. This is something that a lot of viewers brought up, but this is the first time it's ever been presented in court. So I'm excited to see where that expert takes us.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the scientific evidence and the medical evidence will establish that John O'Keefe had to be injured somewhere else, somewhere warmer, and his body had to have been moved out into the cold. And that's where, ultimately at 6 a.m., Karen found him the next morning. You will learn that John did not have a single injury consistent with being hit by a car. Let me say that again. The evidence will establish that John did not suffer a single injury on his body consistent with having been hit by a car. Not one. You'll learn that John's torso, his ribs, his chest, his arms, his hips, his legs, his knees, his ankles, his feet, all of them no broken bones, no fractures, no contusions, no torn ligaments, no internal injuries, not even a bruise. Nothing consistent with a car accident, despite the Commonwealth's contention that he was slammed into by a 6,000-pound SUV. Not a bruise. Dr. LaPosada will tell you with medical certainty that, in fact, John was not struck by a vehicle. Medically and scientifically, he could not have been struck by a vehicle. Therefore, as I said, there was no collision. She will tell you that the patterned abrasions on John's right arm, the patterned abrasions you see over my left shoulder, they're not the result of being struck by a car or a taillight.
Yeah.
You'll take one look at these injuries and you'll agree with Dr. LaPosada. The evidence will show that these injuries are from an animal, like a large dog, like the large dog that was inside the Albert house that night. You'll learn that Brian Albert has actually admitted that his large dog, the family dog, is, quote, not good with strangers. And of course, John, never having been to the house before, was a stranger that night.
I mean, that image alone is pretty compelling.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't strike me as being from a car.
No. And that image is, according to Jackson, what got him hooked on this case, because he says, in certain interviews that he received an email from Karen, and the subject line was what she's charged with and all that, and that image was among the material she sent to him, and instantaneously he said, no way a car did that.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, especially if it's supposed to be a glancing or side swipe or like a glancing blow. If it was like a square hit on like a headlight or something, maybe, but if it's just a side swipe, then definitely not.
Well, but you would also expect bruising to go along with that. If it hit him hard enough for the polycarbonate taillight, and polycarbonate, by the way, is what safety glasses at the firing range are made with.
Mm-hmm.
And so if this is the same material that is supposed to protect your eyes from bullets and casings, then if his arm was hit by that same material hard enough for the polycarbonate to shatter, it would have hit him hard enough for it to have dislocated something or fractured something or bruised something.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also learn that oddly, very oddly, after having their family pet for 7 years, a short time after this incident, the Alberts got rid of that dog.
Mm-hmm.
They called it rehoming her. But she was gone. Dr. LaPosada will also tell you that the injury to John's head was not the result of falling backward onto a flat lawn, cold or otherwise. Rather, Dr. LaPosada will tell you with medical certainty that the injury pattern to his scalp was produced by an impact from a raised or ledged surface, a surface that injuries from a car strike, no collision with a motor vehicle. And forensic analysis of John's cell phone, Mr. Brennan mentioned that in his opening statement, including the temperature data. John O'Keefe was injured someplace warmer, and he was moved. That alone is reasonable doubt, but there's much more. You'll also learn that there were many people at that after-hours gathering at Brian Albert.
Yay, reasonable doubt points. So I also need to note, Jim, because I didn't go back and show you the hearing that took place before they brought in the jury.
Mm-hmm.
At the last minute, Judge Canone told the defense that they were not allowed to mention the ARCA witnesses in their opening.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I listened to the pre. Was it the pre? Maybe that's today actually. The pre-testimony hearing on the 10:45 p.m. PowerPoint, but I didn't hear the
Oh,
ARCA.
yeah. No, so this was because
The text
now,
message thing.
yes, I like you, I've worked a lot this week. So I haven't caught every single detail, but the
Yeah.
general issue is that some text messages between defense attorneys and one or more of the ARCA witnesses were deleted, but they were deleted prior to Bev ordering for those to be turned over.
Okay.
So it's like, well, what can you do? You know, if they were deleted before you told me to save and show them. So
Yeah.
they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place there. So they're going to be coming in for another voir dire on Monday,
Right. I
as
heard
of
about
right
that.
now, to talk about their communications and things of the like. But yeah, so at the very last second, Alan Jackson was forced to redo his opening and leave out anything about ARCA.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah. I hope he just kind of made it more general, or did he? Oh, I guess I'll
Well,
see.
I mean, he had so much else to work with.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you've got the injuries, you've got the suspicious behavior on the part of these third party witnesses / third party culprits.
Yeah.
You have just the sheer unbelievability of the allegations of the Commonwealth too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I like the way he walked the narrow line of not going to third party culprit defenses while still bringing up all of the
Right.
suspicious characters involved.
100%, because we don't need to put on our FBI hats. You know, all he's and through Michael Proctor, he is able to show just a little bit of suspicious behavior on the part of these other people, but because they have a connection with this dishonorably discharged trooper.
Yeah.
Well, if he did enough to get himself fired, who's to say that he intentionally turned a blind eye to that suspicious behavior, that he didn't turn a blind eye to that suspicious behavior? He could have followed up on that, and he chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
So there are plenty of other avenues that law enforcement could have taken when investigating this crime. And instead, he zeroed in on my client. Well,
Yeah. I know.
Zeroed in on Karen and ran with it, and has been foaming at the mouth to get this conviction so that the I don't want to say that it's easy to argue without ARCA, because ARCA is a significant amount of weight when it comes to the defense's case, but he has so much else that he can use that it still came out as a great opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you, Patricia. She says the defense needs to keep hammering home the concept of reasonable doubt to the jury. Yeah, and he's going to go back to it. But yeah, you're right. I hope that when the time comes for the closing arguments, that with every little thing that is brought up, every little piece of evidence that they refer back to, he says with it, that's reasonable doubt. You've got Brian Albert, who didn't come out of the house. That's reasonable doubt. You've got the dog that got rehomed. That's reasonable doubt. You've got Michael Proctor, who was fired. Including reasonable doubt with every single little thing would be great.
House, who would have left by the front door just feet from where John O'Keefe's body would have ultimately been, had he actually been there, right after 12:30 a.m., which is what the Commonwealth's claim is. There were nearly a dozen people who walked out that front door directly adjacent to the precise spot where John O'Keefe would have been lying. Not a single person, not one, not a single person, saw a 6'2", 216-pound man laying sprawled in the front lawn in dark clothing on a light white dusting of snow. Not one. Then the evidence will also show that every one of those same people drove by that same spot, not walked by it, drove by it to leave the house, and still not one of them saw John laying in the yard when they left between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning. But you know who else you'll find never saw a body on that lawn? The snowplow driver, a completely independent witness charged with plowing the streets in Canton that night. You'll hear that Michael Proctor, oh, he's not done yet, Mr. Proctor. You'll hear that Michael Proctor wrote a report where he claimed that Fairview had not been plowed that night. You'll learn that that was completely false. That was a lie. Michael Proctor did not want any more witnesses. He didn't want the truth. And he falsely claimed that the road was never plowed. You'll learn that he wouldn't look for the plow driver, but we did. And we found, and we'll introduce you to, Brian Loughran. He plowed Fairview that night, and what he's going to tell you is that there was no body on that lawn at 2:30 in the morning. You'll learn that Brian Loughran passed by 34 Fairview, traveling right next to Brian Albert's front yard, and at 2:30 a.m., John O'Keefe was not there. But you'll see that the plow driver also provides some other troubling information, troubling testimony for the Commonwealth. You'll learn that after making that pass at 2:30 a.m., he showed up with his plow an hour later. He stopped at the entrance of Fairview. He was looking up Fairview to decide whether or not to plow it, but he saw an obstruction. At 3:30 a.m., he looked down the street, and in the very spot precisely where Karen would later find John's body laying at 6 a.m., there was a car parked in front of it, a Ford Edge.
Jim, question for you.
Yep.
Would the defense be able to ask or subpoena a photographer, get a photographer and ask for that very plow truck, Frankenstein, I think is what they call it. With it.
Oh, I lost you there.
Oh, okay. So I'm back now.
Yep.
Turn all the lights on that truck. Drive it to 34 Fairview and have it take a picture of the scope of visibility that a driver would have had from this truck to be able to show, oh yeah, if there were a body there, I would have seen it. I'm trained to look for objects so that I avoid hitting them.
Yeah, I think you could do that. I don't know about a subpoena, but some kind of like testing or whatever.
Right. So just something to get that exact truck. Because I'm sure different trucks are equipped with different accessories because they don't come out of the manufacturer like this.
Yeah.
Add these on. So, just to show the amount of visibility that this driver would have had, I think would be very helpful to the jury because all that they did in the last trial was ask Brian to describe, okay, how far can you see? Well, I can see very far. Is pretty much what he was able to say. I can see almost all the way to but yeah, that just doesn't tell us a whole lot if all you have to go off of is a verbal description.
Yeah.
Jurors love pictures.
Yeah, nice. Wait a second. I do need to. I don't know if you saw my message. I do need to leave in a few minutes.
You'll learn that Michael Proctor, the lead investigator, intentionally ignored this fact as well. He did no investigation.
Yeah, you're good. I do have to head out in a few minutes though.
Will establish happens to be a favorite.
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry. I said I do need to head out in like a couple of minutes. I sent you a message. I'm not sure if you saw it, but
Oh, okay. Nope, I didn't. Oh,
Okay.
yep. You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Okay. He's wrapping up anyway, so we'll
Okay.
close it out when he closes. He's coming to his end.
Okay.
Model of the Albert family. More than one Albert owned a Ford Edge at the time. You'll learn that those facts will add to the mounting and the overwhelming evidence that there was no collision and John O'Keefe's body was moved onto that lawn. You'll find that this is yet additional reasonable doubt in the case. You'll be introduced to science and physics, even from the Commonwealth's own experts. That science will establish that Karen Reed's SUV was not damaged by hitting a pedestrian, and conversely, John O'Keefe's injuries did not come from being struck by a vehicle.
Amen.
The Commonwealth mentioned triggering events, but what you'll actually learn from the experts, some of them the Commonwealth's own experts, is that a triggering event is not evidence of an accident. It does not evidence a collision. That's why we're here, a collision. And there's no evidence of one, zero. You'll also find that those exact sort of triggering events that the Commonwealth will rely on are relatively commonplace on Karen's SUV, and none of them are associated with a claim of a collision.
Amen. Jim, I'll go ahead and let
Okay,
you
sure.
off. Did you
Sorry.
have any closing thoughts on Jackson?
I thought he was very intense, and he, like I said, he provided a roadmap at the outset with the 3 points, and I think that made all the difference. Whereas Brennan's was very muddled, and I don't know what he was trying to get out of his opening statement. Jackson was very forceful and clear, and gave critical pieces of evidence to look for, which I thought was good. He was intense. He's an intense guy. He was very,
He is.
very
But I
forceful,
also
very
s-
intense.
I also see a man who's been, he's been living this case for 3 years now.
Oh, for sure.
So like I can almost feel his frustration as a juror who might be hearing this for the first time.
Yeah,
Very relatable.
yeah, I can see that. I mean, if these people really have no idea what's going on, you don't want to come on too strong. If like these
True.
people haven't been following the case at all, like why is this guy so angry? But yeah, I like his tie. I like the dimple of the tie. I like the pocket square. Not as much as I liked. What was his name earlier? Brian? No, the LTL media guy. What was his name?
Oh yeah, Brian. His name's Brian.
There's another Brian. I was like, no, that's not right. There's already too many Brians. I'm just
Brian
thinking
is
of the
a
other Brians.
very common name in Massachusetts. All those Irish families.
Yeah. He had a great pocket square. I was thinking about his pocket square. I was a little jealous.
He's very
He had the
dapper.
pink. Yeah, he had the pink pocket square. It was nice.
Yeah. Show
But,
support for Karen. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I
Oh yeah. Well, thank you
I
for
thank
coming
you
on.
for. Yeah, thanks for letting me sneak out. I don't want to get in angry voicemail streams from anybody. From any significant
Oh
others.
yeah, definitely. We can't have her being charged with a crime or anything for leaving you angry voicemails.
Oh man, yeah. We're kind of in the same boat as you. Not quite with the Wi-Fi, but they decided to randomly redo all of, like the access to the building,
Mhm.
like cards and codes and everything. So we're like trying to figure out how to get into the building and out of the building and around the building.
Oh,
It's been
lovely.
a giant pain. Yeah,
So is she standing at the door right now waiting for you to let her into your apartment?
kind of. I kind of need to go now.
Okay,
Not
well,
quite.
No, don't let me keep you. I'm not
Okay,
going to have her
okay,
leaving me
okay.
angry voicemails. Well, you have a great night, Jim. Thanks again.
Yeah, we'll do it soon. All right, bye.
Bye. Y'all, he sent a private message that was like, my girlfriend is here. I need to go. So I'll wrap up with Alan here. Y'all need to hear the rest of it for those of you who haven't.
Folks, the science will not lie. The physics cannot lie. And that science
Too
will tell
many
you with
Brians.
certainty there was no collision with John O'Keefe. You'll add that to that rising mountain of reasonable doubt. I want to take you back to the night in question, January 29th, for just a few minutes. Remember, Karen had gone home after dropping off John and John walking to the house. While Karen was asleep at home with John's 13-year-old niece, what were the people who had been at Brian Albert's house that night? What were they doing? While she slept, what you'll find and what the evidence will show is that they were extremely busy. You'll learn that after a long night of heavy drinking, Brian Higgins left the Albert residence, but he didn't drive home.
Busy little
Rather, he
Brian.
drove over to the Canton Police Department, where he kept an office at about 1:25 a.m. Not a Canton police officer, but he kept an office there. Why go back to his office at 1:25 a.m.? Why go back to the Canton Police Department at 1:25 in the morning on the night of a blizzard? You'll learn that while there, Higgins made a call at 1:30 a.m. Higgins will later deny that he made that call. You'll find that curious. And his explanation for that late-night visit to Canton PD, you'll find that it changes nearly every time he's asked about it. You'll learn that after everyone left Brian Albert's house, Brian Albert actually claimed he had no contact with anybody else except his wife. No contact. Until he woke up the next morning. So he says. Then you'll learn that that, too, is a complete lie. His phone records establish that he placed a call to none other than Brian Higgins at 2:22 a.m. shortly after Higgins completed that late-night visit over to Canton.
I want to put the calls between the Bryans with the Google search with the car together in a timeline. Like, what happened after Karen Reed went to bed, or at least after she went home? What all are the major things that they did after she went to bed?
PD. You'll wonder, what did they possibly need to talk about at 2:22 a.m. that night? The evidence will establish that Brian Albert called Brian Higgins first. Brian Albert then disconnected that call when Higgins didn't answer it. Seconds later, Brian Higgins returned the call. Brian Albert then did answer that call. They spoke for 22 full seconds, had a conversation, then they both hung up their respective phones. You'll learn that when they were asked about these calls in conversations, both Brian Albert and Brian Higgins lied about it. Both of them. They said they never had a call with each other. But then ultimately, when they were confronted with their own cell phone records and they could no longer deny the calls, they were asked independently, explain yourself. And they both came up with the exact same explanation. A butt dial. The evidence will make you question, why did Albert and Higgins speak at 2:22 a.m.? And why did they both try to cover up that phone call? You'll also learn after this incident, and within days of one another, both Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, both police officers, both trained investigators, got rid of their phones. Both of them. And what else you'll learn, Brian Albert got rid of? Shortly after this incident, Brian Albert got rid of his house, the whole thing. Just sold it. His childhood home, a home that...
Can you guys imagine, just for a second, that Officer O'Keefe was found on Karen Reed's front lawn and that she subsequently got rid of her pet, like the same injuries and everything, and say someone else like Jen McCabe had a broken taillight, and then Karen Reed got rid of her cell phone, and Karen Reed got rid of her house, and Karen Reed got rid of her pets. And Karen Reed never came out onto the front lawn. She would have been convicted by now, and none of us would be here. We would all be watching her serve her sentence from afar, and we wouldn't be cheering for her, right? No, we would not.
That had been in the Albert family for generations. He literally sold it mere months after this incident. Dog rehomed, phones destroyed, house sold. You'll learn that all these things happened shortly after the incident where John O'Keefe was found unresponsive and dying in Brian Albert's front lawn. And you'll also learn that Michael Proctor looked the other way. He did not investigate any of what I'm telling you. He pre-selected Karen Reed from the start, and he ignored everything and everyone else. Let's get back to what was happening with the others while Karen slept. What you'll learn during this trial is that Brian Albert's sister-in-law, you've heard her name before, Jennifer McCabe. She was at the waterfall that night, and she was over at the Alberts' house that evening as well. She left the after-hours gathering about 2 a.m., a little before 2 a.m., got home around 2 a.m. And you'll learn that according to the Commonwealth's own evidence from a forensic software program called Physical Analyzer made by Cellebrite, it's considered the gold standard for forensic tools. You'll learn that a Google search was discovered on Jennifer McCabe's phone. A Google search that Michael Proctor and his investigators never revealed to us, but we found anyway. A Google search that was time-stamped, according to their own data, at 2:27 a.m., 5 minutes after that 2:22 a.m. call that Higgins and Albert denied having.
Another thing that Trooper Guarino missed.
And that Google search on Jennifer McCabe's phone read, Hoslong to die in cold. Hoslong to die in cold. Now, she misspelled the first word. Hos is supposed to be how, but the meaning's the same. How long does it take to die in the cold? Time-stamped, 2:27. And then that search was also noted by the same Cellebrite program as having been deleted. The evidence will force you to ask, why is there a search on her phone? Why is it logged at 2:27 a.m.? When the Commonwealth claims that she first learned of John's death and where his body was hours later at 6 a.m. So what you'll learn is that while Karen slept, here's what was actually happening by some other very busy bees. 1:25 a.m., Brian Higgins makes an unexpected visit to Canton PD. 1:30 a.m., he makes a phone call that he later denies ever making. At 2:22 a.m., Brian Higgins and Brian Albert talk. They both deny and lie about having made that phone call. 2:27 a.m., 5 minutes later, a Google search appears on Jennifer McCabe's phone, Hoslong to die in cold, hours before John's body was ever discovered. A Google search she denies making, and that she later, or at least it was later logged as deleted. Meanwhile, at 2:30 a.m., the plow driver confirms that O'Keefe's body was not on the lawn of Brian Albert's house, not at 2:30 in the morning. And at 3:30 in the morning, that area was obstructed by a Ford Edge like the one the Albert family liked to own. The evidence will show in the meantime.
That Ford Edge is going to be included in that major events after Karen goes to bed timeline.
Meantime, Karen dozed in and out of a fitful sleep for the rest of the night, only to awaken just before 5 a.m. And that's when she realized, in a panic, John had never come home. And you'll see, it wasn't like John to not come home. That morning.
Okay, so I know it's late, but for anyone who is still here, I want to know what you guys want to see tomorrow, because I've got two things prepared. I have prepped a Karen Read case for newcomers, for beginners, for those who are not familiar with what's going on, who need to get some background. I can do that tomorrow. Or I can go over Howie Carr roasting the ever-living shit out of Hank Brennan in his Boston Herald article yesterday. So if anyone is still watching, I would like to know what you'd rather see tomorrow. And I mean, if something happens in testimony tomorrow that's like a big bombshell, of course we'll talk about that too. So let me know.
Morning, you'll see and hear evidence that Karen's emotions had morphed. They'd gone from frustration and anger, which you'll hear in the voicemails, to abject fear. Fear that something bad had happened. The evidence will establish by this time Karen was panic-stricken. She had a feeling something was very, very wrong. She was unable to get a hold of John. Karen went to go look for him. She got in her Lexus and she backed up to leave her garage at One Meadows. You'll hear a lot about that address, One Meadows. That was John's house where Karen was staying. She backed out of the garage, and during the course of the trial, you'll hear that she actually struck another car with that right rear taillight. During the course of this trial, the Commonwealth is going to desperately claim that Karen Read's taillight was actually damaged by hitting John O'Keefe. They'll have no evidence of it, mind you, none, but they'll make the claim. We'll show you a video of exactly how that taillight was originally damaged, or exactly what happened at 5:07 in the morning. The facts will show that it was damaged in John's own driveway at 5:07 when Karen backed up and made contact with another car in the driveway. This is 5 hours after she dropped John off and he went into the Albert residence. As a result, the taillight was minimally cracked, but it wasn't completely shattered or damaged or broken. And that's the condition of the SUV when Michael Proctor got a hold of it. That becomes important. You'll hear from an independent police officer, an eyewitness to the damage on that SUV, someone not connected to Michael Proctor or under his control. And he'll tell you that he saw the taillight damaged before it was in Michael Proctor's possession, but it was not completely shattered.
If the defense doesn't show a picture of that taillight to Barros and say, did it look like this? I'm going to shit on the floor of that courtroom.
And you won't have to speculate how that taillight got cracked originally.
Maybe on the step.
You'll see it for
Let's do it
yourself.
on the step.
It's on video. You'll learn that part of the reason that Karen's Lexus hit that car at One Meadows is because she backed out looking for him at a time when she was absolutely panic-stricken and grief-stricken. Where was John? Why hadn't he come home? What had happened to him? Is he hurt? Is he passed out somewhere? Her mind was reeling. The evidence will establish she wasn't giving anything away. Everything was on the table. What could have happened to John? You'll learn that when she woke up and he still wasn't home, she was just racking her brain for what could have happened to him, and she was worried about possibly the worst. He had gotten out of the car. He'd walked to the house. She was confused. And later, when she found him at 6 a.m. on the lawn, where she last saw him going toward the house, her mind started reeling, oh my God, did a plow hit him? Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? What could have happened to him? And that video clip that you saw, out of context, when she said the words, he did not look like he was mortally wounded, she's not talking about at midnight. She's talking about at 6 a.m. when she found him. That's what she was talking about. Your job will be to make sure that the evidence isn't presented to you too cute by half. She was saying all those things. Did a plow hit him? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? She was saying that to herself and to other people. And the Commonwealth, very obviously, will try to seize on that panic and twist this into some admission. But here's the actual truth. That's not a confession. Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Could a plow have hit him? That's a person trying to make sense of an unexplainable circumstance, a natural concern.
Well, and guys, even if she did say that she did it, that's not hard evidence. That's her being a normal woman and placing blame on herself. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just not that compelling to me because which is it? Is she too drunk to remember what she did, or did she knowingly do it? Because if she were too messed up to remember and she's saying that, then that again is a normal emotional woman placing blame on herself for something bad happening to a loved one. What woman doesn't do that? What could I have done differently? Women blame themselves when their kids get sick. Women blame them. Yeah, the Catholic guilt. Thank you, Nikki. Women blame themselves for shit that they couldn't change if they owned the world. Okay? Like if they were Bill Gates, they couldn't have changed anything and they still blame themselves. So yeah, I don't find the whole I hit him thing compelling.
Of a bereaved significant other. A woman desperately trying to piece together what could have happened on this tragic night. John didn't come home. And the evidence will show that Karen Read never said, I hit him. Never. Not in the background of the 911 recording, not on any dash cam video, not on any audio, not on any police body cam, not to a first responder. It's never mentioned in a single report. It's never reported in a single report from January 29th, not by one person, because it never happened. The evidence will show that the evidence will show that there were at least 13 members of law enforcement or first responders and 2 civilian witnesses that were intently focused on what was happening at that scene. They were all over the lawn. They were all over Karen. Officer Sharaf, Mullaney, Good, Lank, EMT Nuttall, Flamati, Kelly, Walsh, Woodbury, Whitley, Becker, Roby, McLaughlin, Carrie Roberts, Jennifer McCabe. They were all there watching and listening. On January 29th, when John O'Keefe was found, not one first responder reported having heard Karen Read say the words, I hit him. Not one. Not one civilian reported having heard Karen Read say, I hit him. The facts will show that the first time this improved statement was ever claimed to have been made was some 24 hours later by a single EMT in an interview. Now listen to this. In an interview coordinated by a Canton police detective named Kevin Albert. Brian Albert's brother. And remember, Chris Albert, the other brother, is the board selectman to whom the Canton Police Department reports. And what's more, you'll learn that Katie McLaughlin, that's the EMT, that's the single EMT, the first person to have claimed to have heard this unrecorded and unreported statement, is years long, close personal friends with a young woman named Caitlin Albert.
Albert.
You heard that right.
That pause. That was
Brian
a
Albert's daughter.
Higgins neck size
During the course
pause.
of this trial, you'll become familiar with and you'll realize that the Alberts are indeed a powerful and indeed an influential family. And that will mean something. You'll learn that there are other major problems with the prosecution's case. The evidence will establish that Michael Proctor himself, the lead investigator and architect of this entire case, has a long-standing and personal relationship with the Albert family. Yes, that same Albert family. His sister was close friends with Julie Albert. He personally sat at head tables at weddings, or at a head table at weddings with the Albert family. He entrusted the Alberts with babysitting his own children. You heard that correctly. And yet he was the lead detective assigned to investigate the circumstances of a Boston police officer laying dead on the Alberts' front lawn. That's not just bias, you'll learn. That's not just coincidence. That, folks, is corruption. And you'll see how far it went. Michael Proctor was alone with all the critical evidence in this case, alone with Karen Reed's phone, alone with John's phone, alone with video footage, alone with the taillight material, alone when he claimed to recover evidence from 34 Fairview. He wrote the search warrants, he transported the evidence, he secured it, he submitted it, he did it all. That's Michael Proctor. And he did it without any reasonable oversight. You'll see during the trial that he intentionally lied and fabricated evidence during the course of this investigation. He lied in reports, warrants, he lied under oath. He lied about the time that he actually secured Karen Reed's vehicle. Why? Why would he lie about that? The evidence will give you the answer. He lied because he did not want it revealed that he had access to that vehicle and he had access to that taillight before any taillight fragments were found at 34 Fairview. Appreciate that. He had access to the vehicle before a single piece of taillight material was ever found at the scene. You'll find that there were two searches. The first and second search found zero.
Okay, so let me make this quick point before I keep going. In order to prove a murder, you have to show motive, you have to show means, and you have to show opportunity. I'm not saying that don't get me conflated here. I'm not saying that Proctor did that. But for fabricating evidence, Proctor had motive, Proctor had means, and what Alan Jackson is explaining right here, right now, is that Proctor had opportunity. Proctor had opportunity to fabricate evidence. When you bugger up your chain of custody, you create opportunities to tamper with evidence, to falsify evidence, to fabricate evidence. What Alan Jackson is explaining here is that by lying in his report about when he took Karen Reed's car, and by taking it when he did, and by not having a secured crime scene, and by not having a clear chain of custody established, and by not taking pictures, by the way, I wish Alan had brought that up. He had a lot that he needed to bring up in a little bit of time, but by not taking photos when he first seized the vehicle, opportunity was created.
Nothing. Nothing around John's body. Nothing in the street. Not one piece of taillight fragment. But once Michael Proctor had that SUV and had the taillight in his custody and control, suddenly items started magically showing up. And not just a few items. 46 pieces of bright red taillight laying in the snow. Supposedly found in the exact same spot that was searched not once, but twice by independent officers. It came up with zero. To be clear, you'll learn that before Michael Proctor had access to that taillight, not a single piece was ever recovered at 34 Fairview. That will become vitally, vitally important. And what about those shards of plastic, by the way? What about this DNA that the Commonwealth mentioned? They're going to try to dazzle you with talk of DNA because it sounds so scientific. DNA was on the taillight, but you'll learn that there was no DNA on the actual shards that they claim came in contact with John's arm. None. There was no blood, no tissue, no skin, no DNA on a single shard of plastic that they claim cut deep abrasions into John's arm, the arm that you saw overhead. The DNA that was actually found, the actual science will show it was found outside of the taillight housing where anyone with access to that vehicle would have touched. And it wasn't just one male's DNA. In that exact same sample, there were 3 men found, John and 2 unidentified males. So unless the Commonwealth is going to shift their theory that that SUV hit 3 men that night, their entire theory falls apart. And speaking of DNA, the evidence will further establish that John O'Keefe's shoe, the one that he was wearing when he was found, was sampled. And that DNA revealed 5, count them, 5 unidentified males. Recall that the evidence will establish independently that John was injured someplace warmer and had to be moved onto that lawn. 5 unidentified males touching that shoe. You'll also learn that you are not the first person, not the first to hear about the Commonwealth's theory of this case, that John was hit by an SUV. That's their theory. The Commonwealth presented this exact same claim to their own medical examiner, a woman by the name of Dr. Irini Scorti-Bello. And you'll learn that after reviewing law enforcement, what's called a law enforcement accident notifier, with law enforcement's theory of the collision written in it, defined in it, after conducting the autopsy herself, after examining John's injuries in detail, she refused to conclude that John's death was a homicide based on the Commonwealth's presentation and their theory. That's right. The Commonwealth's own medical examiner will not deem the manner of death in this case, a homicide. She won't do it.
No dice.
But they're nonetheless back again trying to present the exact same theory to you in this trial. Again, the evidence will.
This is just me thinking wishfully because I know it never would have been allowed because you can't describe to a jury what motions have been filed because that would be extremely prejudicial. But how awesome would it have been if in some whole other universe where it would be allowed, if Jackson had said, but Hank doesn't want you to know that the medical examiner's report came back as inconclusive. Hank wanted you to not even see that. Hank wanted to exclude
will show that is reasonable doubt. Throughout this trial, the Commonwealth will try to convince you of paranormal events, phones calling themselves, messages deleting themselves, Google searches made and then unmade, evidence magically appearing and evidence magically disappearing. But all that smoke and all those mirrors will not ever reach their burden.
Yep.
Because that's what this case is ultimately about. It's about the Commonwealth's burden of proof. You'll learn that during the trial, the Commonwealth bears the highest burden known to our justice system. They must prove every element of every charge beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And you'll learn that moral certainty means the highest level of certainty known in human affairs.
Whoever's sitting behind Jackson's head needs to
They're
get
not going to be able to do that.
Yes.
Not when every piece of this case was handled by a disgraced investigator with a motive to protect his friends, not when the physical evidence contradicts their very theory, not when their own medical examiner won't call this case a homicide based on the exact theory that they're presenting to you, not when the conduct of those in the House and the utter lack of investigation speaks volumes about those who actually have something to hide. By the end of this trial, you'll conclude that Karen Reed is not guilty of hitting John O'Keefe with her SUV. There was no collision. She's the victim of a botched, biased, and corrupted investigation that was never about the truth, folks. It was about preserving loyalty. You'll find that this case is the very definition of reasonable doubt. And at the end of this trial, we'll ask you to return the only verdicts, all 3 of them, that are consistent with the evidence, the science, the truth, and justice. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
He already said truth and justice. You might as well just say the American way.
Thank you.
Amen, Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Jackson. Wonderful job, my friend. I was moved. I'm too big. I was deeply moved. It really is. Oh shit. I'm sorry, Aiden, if you ever see this, but you need to get a different pair of pants. That's all. So, I mean, you just got to be mindful of where the camera angle is going to be, right? I mean, it's not a flattering camera angle for anybody, but yeah. Either find a different seat or buy another pair of pants. Anyway, so tomorrow, I'm still weighing my options, but we're either going to be back here roasting Hank with Howie Carr, or we will be back here doing a Karen Read for Dummies. So we'll just surprise you tomorrow. But thank you so much to those who came on and were part of this stream with Jim and me today, despite the crazy issues that we're having with connectivity. I'm working on that. I'm doing my darndest. We'll do what we can. But y'all have an amazing, amazing night. I am so looking forward to seeing what the heck's going to happen tomorrow. So we'll see you very soon. Have a wonderful evening. Peace, love, and butt dial.